Using leverage for wealth building. Hey everyone, it's Wolfgang. So money is exciting. It really is. It's really cool when you have sufficient income, number one, but also abundance. If you have abundance, that's a pretty cool thing to have. So this video is about increasing your abundance, starting with building a book of business. So may not be familiar to you. What this means is creating a list of your own clients, your own customers. And it may not be obvious how to do that. So I'll explain what you can do to make this happen, because there are benefits to having your own customers. First of all, if you have your own book of business, your own customers, for whatever you do, if you're a hairstylist, if you're a software engineer, if you're a property manager, if you're in the trades, if you work in HVAC or plumbing, you maximize your personal economic security by having your own customers. Having a book of satisfied clients is better than having a job. It's better than a hairstylist working in a salon. It's better than a software engineer making $200,000 a year at Google. Because the loyal clients that you have in your book of business are yours. I'm going to explain how to build a book of business in a couple seconds. But the point is, you need to think in terms of how do you get your career to the point where you have your own customers. Because as an employee, you don't have any customers. You have one paycheck. You're vulnerable, okay? If you get laid off, your income goes maybe from $200,000 a year working at Google as a software engineer to zero overnight. If you have your own book of business, if you take some steps that I'll outline here, you maximize your personal economic security by having your own customers, by not relying on the good graces of a company to keep paying you, because they may not. So building a book of business, it simply means taking a look at your skill set, figuring out how you can take your skill set and use it to build your own book of customers, your own customer list, people who buy from you, who you make effort to keep satisfied. You want to build a book of satisfied customers. So how do you do this? Okay, it's pretty simple. It's actually pretty simple. I started doing this right out of college, almost, practically right out of college, because I knew I did not want to be dependent on a paycheck. I wanted to have my own source of income from my own customers, if nothing else, as a fallback plan. Initially, I did this in my spare time, building my own book of business. So how do you do this? You have to use public outreach. In my case, what I did is I sort of followed Warren Buffett's early model, which was he taught classes at the local university. I did the same thing. I taught at UC Santa Cruz. And I put my name out there. I did public outreach that way. That was not really, strictly speaking, it was not a formal way of marketing or advertising, because to become visible, a much easier way to do it is to have an online presence, to build up an online presence, and then also to use marketing and advertising, online blogging, YouTube videos, and using social media websites. It's much easier than trying to get a teaching job at a university. You can start this immediately, like today, like tonight. You can do it right now. You can you can make a simple plan and start developing your public outreach, developing and increasing your visibility. Okay, so when you build your profile online, when you start building awareness of yourself, you do that by demonstrating the skills that you have. If you're a software engineer, you could create tutorials on using the latest AI tools to write code. As an example, you would begin your public outreach by posting online to social media sites, YouTube, by blogging. You could demonstrate your skills in your particular domain in the posts that you make and the videos and shorts. So what you're doing there is you're raising your profile, you're engaging in public outreach to say, hey, this is me, this is what I do. It gives people a chance to become aware of you. So when you're working as an employee at a company, the only people who are aware of you are your coworkers and your boss. The customers of that company have no idea who you are. So the people paying your salary don't see you. The customers of the company you work at as an employee, they're paying your salary indirectly. They don't know who you are. This way, you're taking the initiative to get out in front of the public and say, I have skills. I've developed these skills over time. Here's what it looks like. And over a period of time, you demonstrate skills in your particular area. If you're a hairdresser, if you're a software engineer, if you're an HVAC, if you're in the trades, you can do this. You can create short videos. You can use blog posts. You can use social media posts to demonstrate that you possess valuable skills that people need. Because if you're working as an employee at a company and you're getting paid, you, by definition, have valuable skills because somebody is willing to pay you to perform those skills. That is your meal ticket to maximizing your personal economic security. You have to build your own customer list, though. You can't be lazy and get wealthy. What we're trying to do is we're trying to build wealth. We're trying to figure out how to use leverage to do that. And as we move through this, I will start talking about leverage here directly, okay? So you become visible, you demonstrate your skills, and then you have to start working on establishing trust, okay? Trust is developed. The benefit of people trusting you is you become a reliable source if they need something in your skill set domain. If someone trusts you, for example, if you were going to ask someone about rockets and you had a chance to talk to Elon Musk for a day, you would do that. That's the primary rocket person in our culture these days. So you get the idea. Those are his skills. You would go to the person with the most skills. You want to become that person who is recognized over time, demonstrating the skills using public outreach. People become aware, okay, this guy has these skills. You become a go-to person for those skills. You have to do this over an extended period of time. The trust, I mean, Elon Musk, had he, his profile was non-existent back in the early 2000s. He raised his profile over time. He went on Saturday Night Live. He showed up on the news. He showed up online in a lot of videos with a lot of famous people. He raised his profile. So trust comes from demonstrating a commitment, and you're taken seriously if you show up over an extended period of time, relentlessly. If you say, I'm going to raise my profile, I'm going to engage in public outreach, I'm going to use the conventional contemporary tools, marketing and ads, blogging, YouTube, social media, etc. And you could teach a class at the university too. You're going to demonstrate your skill set and show a commitment over a long period of time, and you will begin to develop trust. People will come to know, okay, this person has skills in this area. Because if you have a question about, say, something in software or HVAC or something in plumbing, if you're a consumer and you go to one of the social media sites or YouTube and type in that particular skill, you want to be found as someone, you want to raise the possibility that you will be found as an expert in that area. If you do your public outreach, over an extended period of time, it develops trust. People know you're committed. You're showing commitment. Another way to increase trust and raise your profile is having professional certifications and licensing if you can. There's a lot of ways to do that in most professions. There are ways to get professional certifications, and you want to mention those. When you do your public outreach, you want to mention you have licenses, certifications that are challenging to get. Not just you pay somebody money and you get the certificate mailed in the mail. It's something that took an effort to achieve, and you had to have certain skills to be able to qualify. Okay, so leverage. The most important part of this video is now. Okay, leverage for wealth building. Okay, we went from being an employee to building our own customer list, our own book of business, using public outreach, showing commitment, and showing up relentlessly over time so people develop trust in us. The return on time leverage, this is a very important point. So pay attention to this because this is very enlightening. If you, money is exciting. If you want to get wealthy, you have to use leverage. It doesn't necessarily mean borrowing money. It can mean something like this. Okay, there are two scenarios here. The first scenario is you're earning $200,000 a year writing code at Google. You're working 45 hours a week, 50 weeks a year. Okay, 200 grand a year divided by 2,250 hours. 45 hours times 50 weeks is 2,250 hours. You're making about 89 bucks an hour, okay? 200 grand a year salary, you're making $89 a year. So most people would say you're doing okay. 200 grand a year, six-figure income, not bad. Okay, but what if you did something like I did? Almost immediately after getting out of college, I started an investment fund, a friends and family investment fund. Most of the people who invested with me knew me, there were a couple who were acquaintances who came by way of other people who knew me. So there was already established trust. So if you operate a friends and family private investment fund, let's say there's $1 million in your investment fund. It's a friends and family investment run. The total pool of capital is $1 million, and you manage to return 10% a year. In my case, I sort of knew what I was doing with investing, and over a 7-year period when I ran that investment fund, the average annual return was over 36%. Okay, 36%. I did pretty well. So I ended up going to graduate school and pursuing that as a future career at some point. I recognized, okay, I did well with this. I like it. I enjoy it. Let me go pro, turn professional. But back to this example, $1 million in your pool of capital in your investment fund. Let's say you return a reasonable 10% a year. That's $100,000. Okay, and let's say that you are making investment decisions, where to invest the money in the fund. You're spending 3 hours a week making those investment decisions. That's just, on average. Some weeks it'll be more. Some weeks there will be no time spent making because after you make the investment decision and you pull the trigger, the funds get committed, and then the investment is it's growing. Hopefully, the investment's growing, but you don't have to continually make investment decisions after you pull the trigger. The money's invested. But on average, let's say there's 3 hours a week for 50 weeks over the course of a year. That's 150 hours spent running this investment fund. It's 150 hours total for the year. And the return was 10% on $1 million, 100 grand. $100,000 return, 150 hours. So over the course of the year, we had a return of 100,000 divided by 150 hours worked. That's $6,667 an hour. Okay, compared to $89 an hour. Okay, so this is the leverage. Leverage for wealth building means being smart about your return on time. The return on 150 hours was much, much, much higher. 6,667 versus 89. The return on time was okay. I mean, no one would scoff at a $200,000 a year take home, income. No one would scoff at that. Most people would say that's good. You're doing okay. It's $89 an hour. If you decided to really focus on the rate of return on your time, because you're not really getting you're getting a return on your time here, 2,250 hours a year. You are getting a return, but it's nothing compared to this. So as you go through your career, you want to think about maximizing your personal economic security, building your own list of clients. Okay. Another example that I have direct experience in is real estate. When you rent a unit, it's a 1-year lease. There's very little time spent after you show the unit to prospective tenants. You perform the tenant screening to qualify to find the best tenant for the unit. When they move in, they're going to be there for a year. There's no additional selling effort. You don't have to show up every few days and resell them, or every month and resell them. They signed a lease. They don't want to move. They want the stability of having a place to stay and not having to worry about it for a year. They have kids in school. They have their job nearby. They want the stability of knowing that you can't raise the rent on them for an entire year. So you rent the place out, and the numbers are similar to this compared to a regular job. The number of hours you spend on your rental units it's very small. I mean, if you're not good at operating your rental properties, okay, it can be a different story. If you don't understand how to perform tenant screening and you end up with a bunch of tenants who cause problems, that's a different story. Okay, when I started as a property owner and renting out units, I had problems like that. I didn't know what I was doing. It took me a while and some hard lessons to figure out I'm going to have to emphasize my tenant screening process better, because if people are not able to pay the rent, that's a problem. I'm going to have to find someone who can, right? So, but let's just assume you develop the skill to operate the investment property. The amount of time you have to spend after someone moves in is minimal. I mean, if the unit is in good enough condition to attract a quality tenant who can pass your tenant screening, that means the property is in good shape. It's not falling apart. You have put in, enough to put in the effort in the property to bring it up to a standard that will attract good tenants. So the property condition is good. It's not going to generate a lot of maintenance calls throughout the year. So you end up with similar leverage to the private investment fund. So I've done both of these. These are much better than the job. Okay. The reason is, when you're an employee, you don't have any customers. You have a paycheck, and it can go away instantly. Your boss can say, we want you to stay home tomorrow, and we're going to do a Zoom. We're going to have a Zoom meeting, and then everyone gets laid off. So overnight, your income goes to zero. You protect yourself by doing things like this, by saying to yourself, I've got to develop a book of business. I've got to look at my existing skills. What am I good at? And how can I, over time, incrementally raise my profile using public outreach And if you own rental property, it's really simple because all you have to do is place an ad that you have an available unit. That's your public outreach. You do that once a year at the most, right? Because when someone moves in, they sign a 1-year lease. So you post the ad, that's your public outreach. So the public outreach for rental property is even simpler than other skills that you might possess. But let's say that you're a software engineer. This is something else I did. As a software engineer, I started finding my own customers in Silicon Valley where we lived. I had a bunch of because Silicon Valley has a gazillion high technology companies that hire software engineers, and a lot of the people that get hired were like me. They were contractors, they were consultants. They were hired for 3 months at a time, 6 months at a time, 1 year at a time, 2 years at a time. I worked at more than one company where they kept renewing the contract. So I didn't have to make additional sales effort. Although, the leverage was not so great. When you're writing code, that's a time-intensive activity. But the point is, at least you have better economic security when you have your own book of business. If you have an investment fund, if you have rental properties, especially rental properties, your book of business is your set of tenants, the tenants who are renting from you, right? So this is the path to wealth, is to maximize your return on time, your leverage on your time. $100,000 a year in an investment fund where you only have to work 150 hours a year is a much better return on time, much better leverage than this situation where you're either contracting or you're an employee at a company. At least if you're contracting, you control your income much better because you have your own list of customers. I got hired more than once from customers I had served in the past. I made happy clients. They would call me back if they had a future need. So I had the same customer multiple times because I worked hard at trying to do a great job. And that's what you need to be able to do. To build your book of business, you need to make happy clients. You have to make the effort to keep your customers happy. In the case of an investment fund, working hard to make smart investment decisions so you have good returns, that will keep your investors happy. If you're a property manager, you have high leverage on your time, a fantastic return on your time. So, and all you have to do is have great units that are in great condition, and not a lot of management you have to do because people renters tend to take care of themselves. They have their own lives, so they're not going to really bother you unless they need something. So that's just some examples of where to think about, how do I get better economic security and how can I increase my wealth? Return on time leverage. That's the way to do this. So you should start thinking, if you're early in your career, you start by saying, what are my skills and how can I transition into getting my own customers? If you're a hairdresser, you start off earlier in your career working in a salon that someone else owns. You develop your skills as a hairdresser or someone who also does nails. You start getting customers who request that you do the work for them. You start building your own customer list. Eventually, after you've saved some money, you can rent out your own salon, and you already have a book of customers who know you. Those are your first customers. You hire other hairdressers and nail people who do nails to work in that salon, and they will pay you a portion of the income they make from their clients. So that would be a progression from employee to having better leverage and better personal economic security. The whole problem with being an employee is you don't have any customers. You only have a paycheck. You're very vulnerable. People think they're not vulnerable if they get a job because someone else is paying their paycheck. You're extremely vulnerable. You can lose the job instantly, almost overnight, and you can get a little bit of severance perhaps. But so just some things to think about. Money is exciting. There are paths to get there. You have to start working on these early in your career and start thinking on maximizing your return on time, and you will become wealthy over time. You have to plan for it, you have to work at it, and you will become wealthy, and you won't have to worry about getting laid off. If you have any questions about this, I'd be happy to answer any questions you post in the comments. I really want to thank everyone for watching. Good luck out there. Have a great day.